Good afternoon, everyone. Let's continue with our last chapter called jQuery. So our first question is what is jQuery? So you can see the word jQuery. So it starts with the J. J means JavaScript. Query means just want to differentiate with from JavaScript. So it's related to JavaScript but not JavaScript. So in fact, we can consider jQuery like a list of APIs built on top of JavaScript. Just want to make using JavaScript easier. So that means you have written a list of functions which can provide you to easily access each object and set the properties for each of them, or update the page, the content, or doing some animation or effects. So this is the relationship between JavaScript and jQuery. That's why, in fact, we put jQuery and JavaScript together as one module. So jQuery is only covered in this chapter. So here is the formal definition. We said that jQuery is a script. It is written in JavaScript. So that means the experts have written a list of programs using JavaScript to make the work easier for programmers. So for a web programmer, they don't need to build up everything from scratch. Just like you are building a house, so there are already some parts are already done. You can just buy in the store. Or just you are doing OO design, you will have a list of objects ready for you to use. So you don't have to build everything from scratch. So we don't need to build a new wheel. We can use existing wheels. We can use existing standard parts to combine to assemble our cars. Same concept behind them. So here, in fact, when we want to use jQuery, we first need to include just like saying into the package, similar like we do CSS. So we have to include that or just import that package in our program. So once you have imported that package in your HTML code, your JavaScript code, means your web code, and then you are ready to use the functions in the package. So how can we use the package for our web programming? In fact, they can do mainly two things. First one, we said is jQuery, JavaScript-based query. So that means that you can easily find the elements. We know we have a DOM model. Based on the DOM model, we can find the object tree. We need to go over layer by layer to find the object. But here, you don't need to do that complicated things by yourself. So in a function, they can easily retrieve any object in the web page, on the web page. So that means the first one is select elements. Okay, you can find the elements easily. You can just do maybe a symbol function, they will find it. And the next one, once you find the elements, you may want to do the changes. For example, you want to update its contents, you want to show it in a different effects, you want to have a fade-in effect, you want to hide it, and so on. So next thing is just do something on the elements. So you want to do two things. First one, you want to update the page. Which page, which content you want to change. Then you need to identify the elements. But how to find elements? In the past, we used the JavaScript, still slow, still more complicated compared to this one. So use jQuery, just one stop. Okay, you can find the elements. You just call. Later you find it. Just use a dollar symbol, or you can find it's just jQuery function. You can find that element. Okay, you want to find all the list with some attributes, and then you can just put that information into the function parameter, and then you just use jQuery and the parentheses inside. What is the functions? What's the features of the elements you want to find? So that's it. And next one, once you got the objects, that means after you select elements, you will return a jQuery object. So based on the object, you can change its properties. Correct? So in fact, for each object, jQuery object, we have like a reference. In the reference, we have its name and properties. Name just object name. Properties means what is the information it has, and then it will allow you to do the changes. Okay. Okay, so that means we can first use jQuery to select elements. But in fact, the way to select elements not using the same style as JavaScript, we use the CSS style because that is more direct and much easier. Okay. So later you can find some examples why it is the CSS style. So the reason is that we can just use the name for each the ID or name and or properties or means features or attributes to retrieve elements. So that's the CSS style. Okay, CSS style selectors. For example, like this one. So in fact, we mentioned it before, we select an object based on a function. The function name is called jQuery. In fact, later you can find that we can further simplify this jQuery function name by using $1 symbol. Okay, make it easier for you to spell. And then in the function, we just provide the attributes or the information you want to find. So here, the parameter for you is that this is the CSS style selector. Cut means the list with attribute hot. Cut, you have a lot of list, and then list items. Some items has this attribute. So you will find all the list items with attribute hot, and then put them into a object, and then you will refer to the first list item. So you may have a multiple. Okay? So this is the idea. Maybe you have an array or list, and then you will point to the first one. Okay. So this is as a whole is a function, and then this one is the CSS style selector. Okay. So you can utilize the knowledge you have learned before in CSS, and then combine the knowledge you have learned in JavaScript, so you know how to select objects in JavaScript. And then, but now you do that object selection in a much easier way by using function and then CSS style selector. So make it easy, we just replace the jQuery function as a dollar sign. So this is just for JavaScript jQuery function. Okay. So we mentioned already. So when you select an element or a list of elements or a set of elements, in fact you will create a jQuery object just like before. This one, in fact, you may have a multiple list items. So we didn't only keep one, we keep all of them. So you may have an array, and then in the array, you can just first point to the first object. Okay, to the first list item in this object set of object, and then you can retrieve one by one. So later you also learn loop over all the objects in this object. Okay. So that object contains references to the elements. So that means we can find all of them. So you may go over next, before. That means just back and forth. If there's a 1 in front, you can go go to the front. If there's one next, go to next. And also similar like other objects in our HTML, in our CSS, in our DOM model. So it will have properties and methods. Okay, properties means it's features. Okay, methods means the functions we can do for the object. Okay, so you have both properties and the methods. That's important properties for us to find the objects, and the methods for us to do something on the object. Okay. So a jQuery with selected elements can be called a jQuery selection or matched set. So that's easy to understand. That means once we provide the jQuery function with some CSS selectors, it will return a jQuery object. So for this one, after we finish the job, we said this we have finished a jQuery selection. You have identified a list of objects in your code, in your HTML, in your web page, and then we return a match set for this jQuery. So that means the first functionality of jQuery is just do object selection or element selection. Okay. The second thing is that we want to do something. That you have identified the objects, elements, but not the final goal. You just want to find the elements. You want to do something on the elements. So next thing is that we need to write the functions in jQuery. So in fact, jQuery package already did that. You can do a lot of things based on the provided functions, and then you can just call them directly. You want to, for example, delete, you want to change the content, you want to hide it, you want to show animation based on the contents, you want to update the HTML contents, and so on. Or even you can change only the contents, not the HTML, means the formatting. So you will provide a list of functions. So jQuery have done this already. So you just need to know which functions for which things. Okay. For example, like this one, we find the list items with hot attributes. After that, we will hide all of them. Right? So this is just like something you can do on the elements you have selected. So this is the method of the jQuery object example. So it's hide means you want to hide them, and then that's the thing we can do. Okay, properties and methods. Okay, so that means with jQuery you can do element selection, you can do update the contents, size, visibility, and also you can simplify the event handling. So we'll cover all of these three things, the basic things, in this in this lecture. Okay, let's look at one example. The simple example, just put all of these things together. That's also the first example for this chapter. Okay. So let's look at the first one. We have a basic example HTML and a basic example .js. So Java means JavaScript. But in fact, I mentioned to you jQuery is like an extension of JavaScript. So you have started with JavaScript and then learn jQuery. You cannot do in a reverse way. So let's look at the HTML and think most of the things are same as before. Right? You don't do something new. So here is the head, body, and division. This is the content body till here. You can find out what's the new is here. So in fact, you have added these two things. So what is the two things? In fact, the first thing is just want to utilize this version of jQuery. Of course, I maybe tried it latest version as well. This one is based on the code provided by the book. So in fact, the jQuery version is still old. Okay, so I believe now it's already 3 something. Maybe you can just go to the website, search the jQuery the latest version. But the good thing is that this is backward compatible, so even newer code can still utilize the older, that means compatible with older package. So new code can still call the older ones. Okay, that means this older code can be run on the newer, same thing, on the newer version of jQuery package. And then this is just just import the jQuery package, because you want to use jQuery functions. Even the jQuery itself is also function, so you have to include the package. Then these functions are available for you to utilize. So next thing is that you want to add the JavaScript code. In fact, basically we do the jQuery things there. That's here, So this is the basic functions which will be used in this JavaScript code. That's the reason we will add both of them. Let's look at the contents. In fact, not very new. Look at JavaScript, and then you will show this title, and then you have a CSS. Okay, put all together. You have HTML code, head, body, like these things, and then you also have a CSS. You have a next one is the content of the HTML. So you have division, and then ID for heading, the first heading, a second level heading, and then you have unordered list. In this unordered list, you have 4 items, list items, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 is for the ID of items, and then they have the class attribute, which are hot. So that means for each of these 3 items, they are hot. So in fact you are prepare a menu. Okay? So fresh, pine nuts, honey, vinegar, and then for these 3 are hot, these are not. Okay, so let's look at what is done here. So in fact you can find that this is dollar means jQuery. jQuery will do the retrieval. It will retrieve the elements based on the CSS style selectors. Okay, so that means you will find the header, all the headers. So header, you have header is here. Okay, so okay, it's here, and then add a class headline. Just add a headline to it. Okay, and then next one is the list item. So list item, and then this is LT means iteration. Okay, IT should be IT. Yeah, IT iteration. Iteration means that iterator list iterator you will find the first 3 items from 1 to 3, and then this is just search the elements. That means you find the list items, the first 3. After that, you will do updates. Okay? You will do something. First one, you find the elements. Second one, you do something. Okay? We mentioned for jQuery we can do 2 things. First one, you can locate the elements. Second thing, you can do changes. You can do updates. You can do modification. So you are, in fact, this is a chain of functions. Means you will do these 2 things, one after the other. You first hide it. So hide the first 3 items, list items in the menu, and after that make it show. That means faded in. Fading, that means appear in a fading away. So it will using 1500 milliseconds. Okay, use this time to fade in. Okay, next one for the list, still the select list items, but this one we don't have the scope is the first 3. So all the items, as long as it is a list item. So that means this is the type of object, type of elements, list item. And then we do the thing is this is event. So on click event, you will do these things. Okay, what things? That means based on this event, this is event feedback function. Event feedback function till here. So of course you can just provide the parameters inside, but here there's no parameters. So you just want to do something. this means the items you have selected. You may click the first item, the second item, the third item. Once you click that item, it will remove it. So that means this item will, this element, this item will be removed from the HTML code. Okay, from the code. Okay, let's look at Control B. Okay, so you can find the first one didn't show, and after that it shows within 1,500 milliseconds. Let's do it again. Just look at one more time. You can find the first one we don't show, and then find it, and then we can click. Once we click one, it will be gone away. Right? So that means we remove that code or that elements from the DOM. Okay, that's it. You click others, have no change. Okay, this is the first example.